friends. She is Cynthia Gouw. She is basically an actress and Emmy winner, but before I actually bring her on, we want to show a video of her, and then I'm going to give a really in-depth introduction to her because she's such a deep, good, long-time friend of mine. But before we do that, let's see if we can get, I believe, the video going. This is Cynthia? Yes. Awesome. And this is a little clip of her.
Gouw, consider yourselves my prisoners. Prisoners? We're already prisoners here on this worthless lump of rock. What possible value could we be to you? Nimbus 3 may be a worthless lump of rock, but it does have one unique treasure. It's the only place in the entire galaxy that has the three of you.
I don't know who you are or what you want, but I can tell you this. Our governments will stop at nothing to ensure our safety.
That's exactly what I'm counting on.
She wants to also win $100,000 tonight. She's our second TV spokesmodel finalist. From Los Angeles, wearing a designer fashion by Stephen York, here's Cynthia Gouw. Hi, Cynthia. Welcome back to Star Search. I'll ask you the same question. Making it to the finalists, what is the appearances here and the Star Search competition? What has all that meant to you?
Welcome to the tremendous realization that all my appearances on Star Search have paid for my tuition at UCLA Law School, and it's really wonderful. And I think most people think that Star Search and law school might be diametrically different pursuits. However, I think they actually complement each other, and they will lay out like a nice, strong foundation for what I'd like to do, and that is to be a talk show hostess.
Talk show hostess. All right, Cynthia, here you are. And here's the reason why you are a finalist here tonight. Her latest fashion video right here. $100,000 very shortly. What's coming up next?
Still to come on the Star Search final, the female vocalist $100,000 competition as round one champion Linda Eder meets round two champion Dee Dee Belton. Also, it's the best teams of 1988 on the Star Search Night of Stars.
So that was back in 1988, which I always say was the video to help me get to puberty. Now, Cynthia is a really good friend of mine now, and we are very fortunate to have her in this next segment, which is focused on fear, right? Getting over your own fears.
Yes.
And one thing that I actually really want to share, was there anything that you've ever had to go through yourself to get through fear in your life?
Yes, getting on the stage.
That'll do it. Me too. So, I'm just going to give a quick little intro, and what's going to happen is that we're going to actually have Cynthia give an actual talk. So I'm not going to be doing an interview. She actually has a really well planned out address she wants to give you guys and some really fun exercises. But Cynthia is essentially one of the earliest multi-hyphenates in a world that is currently a place of freedom and choice to pursue one's own path, which is now a given. She's also one of the very first pioneers and one of the very first early thinkers. In the past 40 years, she has reached the top of her competitive fields in the areas of acting, journalism, entrepreneurship, modeling, and of course, social media. She is the very first, or one of the very first Asian Americans to win the nationally televised talent show, and is also an actress who broke a lot of boundaries in her role, as you saw there, as a Romulan in the movie Star Trek Final Frontier. Now, she never wanted to just rest on her laurels. She is a nationally recognized television journalist, also magazine, article, a model, as well as a cover girl, beauty entrepreneur, and speaks for foreign policy forums, and also a philanthropist. She is also an entrepreneurial storyteller who speaks with humor, authority, and authenticity to the audience and her community with more than 400,000 followers across social media platforms. She is a graduate of UCLA, and also UCLA graduate of law school, a lot of lawyers this year, and also in Miss Chinatown, USA, Ashland, back in 1984. Now, please, everyone, come together. I want you to help me welcome my dear friend, Cynthia Gouw, who breaks boundaries every day, and wants you to be prepared for your journey and be able to empower you and to help you use your fear as fuel.
Before we leave, I want to actually tell my dear friend Francis here that he has actually been such a mentor to me. He's been a mentor to so many people in this room, and you know what? Your story inspires me. A doctor survived a devastating plane crash and now has turned around and decided to inspire others with your dream of leadership and inspiration. So can we just give a big warm round of applause to Francis? Well, everyone, it's great to see everybody. What an impressive audience we have here today. Doing something a little different, standing up here and talking to you. So, first, let me ask you a question. What would you do and accomplish in your life if you weren't afraid? Now, I want you to sit with this question for a second, and I'm going to ask you about that later. So, not many people have the diversity of background and crazy careers that I've had. I've been an actress, I've been a model, I've been a lawyer, I've been a television journalist, an entrepreneur, a producer, and also a media influencer. And some may say that, gee, you know, you've had so many different careers in your lifetime, you've reinvented yourself so many times that maybe you should change your name to J-Lo or turn myself into a bat. So, each time I moved between careers, I realized that I had to face my fears and conquer them and move ahead. And while that may be true with every career pivot I made, there were a string of failures in between caused by fear. In fact, fear caused me to lose one of my jobs at the pinnacle of my career. Now, fear and resulting shame limited my potential, and I don't want it to limit yours. Now, some of you might think, I don't have fear, but everyone has fear. Fear of criticism, fear of ridicule, fear of rejection, fear of loneliness, fear of failure. And at 60 years old, I've experienced every single one of these fears, and I know I will experience even more. You know, a lot of us organize our lives in ways that helps us avoid risk and helps us avoid our fears. We go to the right school, we pick the right career, we follow the well-trodden path. And I was certainly no different. I was a shy kid, I was a people pleaser, and I gladly took the conventional path. But after I went to law school, I decided that I was going to make a decision, not to become a lawyer, but to do something entirely different. I'm a creative person, and I love to push my boundaries and be driven by that creative process. And I knew the structure of being a lawyer wouldn't fulfill me. So I knew I had to shift my framework. And it was scary pursuing the unknown, but I had trust in myself. Little did I know that making that choice in my life would be far more challenging, interesting, weird, bizarre, and fulfilling than I had ever expected. But the downside was that I had to constantly face my fear. Now, early on, I learned that fear triggers 3 reactions: fight, flight, and fear. Flight, fight, let's do the F's again. Fight, flight, and freeze. And then I realized that there is a 4th possibility, and that 4th possibility is feel. So let me ask you this. Wouldn't it be amazing if we could turn fear into fuel? And now let me ask you that question that I asked at the very beginning. Do you think you could accomplish more in your life and have a bigger impact if you weren't afraid? Can you yell it out?
Yes. Hell yeah!
Yes?
Hell yeah!
Okay. Thank you so much. That's how I felt too. So I want us to come together as a group today and go on a journey as we explore this together as a group. I want you to trust the process, and by doing so, change our mindset and turn fear into fuel. This change of mindset has personally impacted my whole outlook and has been a guiding principle in my life. It has allowed me to surf at the edge of my competence for 40 years and to do many things like break down doors and break through glass ceilings. So, after I finished law school, I was the first host on E! Entertainment Television, and I had a growing acting career. I was a top model in Los Angeles, and I had 5 of the leading acting and modeling agencies in the world representing me. But then I feared that my creativity wasn't making an impact. I feared being dismissed as lightweight, as a powder puff. And I feared not being taken seriously in turn. And I wanted to make sure that my voice was more substantial. I knew the best way for me to make this impact and make my voice count was to do a total U-turn and become what I've always dreamed of, but never wanted to say out loud. And that was to be a broadcast journalist. Yeah, that's what I wanted to be. So I left the red carpet, regular attendance at the Academy Awards, and I left the glittering lights of LA, and I moved to Bakersfield, California, where I became the farm reporter at $4.25 an hour. Now, if anybody knows Bakersfield, it was then, as it is now, the 1 millionth media market in the country. Getting a job there is one step above being a reporter at your local high school newspaper. If you were a farmer in Bakersfield, I was your Connie chum. Now that move scared the bejesus out of me, but I eventually achieved success. I worked my way up to the top media markets in the country, and I received national awards and 3 Emmy Awards. So how did I turn that fear into fuel? It wasn't an easy road, and it was pretty confusing at times. You hear this all the time. You have to conquer your fears, conquer your fears. And that seemed like a really huge lift to me. It requires so much courage. In the end, trying to conquer your fear, or attempts to conquer your fear, is in itself a very scary and daunting thing. When we're afraid of things, we react in 3 ways, like I said before: fight, flight, or freeze. A flight response would be, you could be impatient, you could be impulsive. What else? Defensive, angry. A flight response is hiding or being in denial. A freeze response is complete inaction, just stuck or being shocked so much that you're frozen in your tracks. But instead of just reacting to our fears, have you ever thought of maybe trying something completely different? What happens if, instead of reacting to our fears, we turn them into positive reactions by thoughtfully responding to them and possibly even embracing them? And embracing our fears has 3 elements, and they're not what you think. And those 3 elements are affirmation, naming your fear, and one of my personal favorites, vulnerability. You know, it takes courage to expose yourself and put yourself out there because there's a fear of misunderstanding, criticism, judgment, or even harm. However, vulnerability is essential. So now what I want to do is the first of 2 exercises that we will do together as a group. That involves getting out of our chairs and pairing up with a partner. But before we do that, let's talk about how we're going to run this. Even though our group is large today, I want us to experience the intimacy and the power of this moment. I would like to create a safe space for us to be vulnerable. And I would like each of you in this room to apply Vegas rules. Whatever's said or done inside this room stays in this room. Can I get agreement from the crowd?
Yes.
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 Thank you. Now consider this a room full of friends and supporters. And with that, I want to encourage you to take these exercises with enthusiasm and an open heart. So now, all of you now, sitting in this room, I want you to think of your superpower. Something that you're really good at. Choose something that you usually don't boast about. Take a risk here and share something big like, I'm amazing at creating community, or I'm an amazing listener, or I'm amazing at teaching people or inspiring them, or whatever you think your personal superpower is. And because we're mostly Asian Americans in this crowd, there is no right answer. And believe me, this question is even challenging for my non-Asian American friends. But please be assured that every answer is valid, and don't worry what the other person is thinking. Let's keep this a judgment-free zone. And for those of you who are not ready, you can say something easy like, I'm an amazing parallel parker, or I'm amazing at throwing dinner parties. But you will get extra points and will personally take away something more valuable if you can think of a bigger and more bolder answer than that. And there's only one hard rule here, and that is, I don't want anyone here using exculpatory words. What's that? I don't want people saying, I think I am amazing at, or people say I'm amazing. No. Instead, I want you to make a declarative sentence to your partner. Just say, I'm amazing at ... Your partner, who you'll pair up with, should repeat that back to you exactly that way. Say, you are amazing at ... Then you accept the compliment and you say, yes, yes I am. And then I want you to switch with your partner, switch roles, and do the exact same exercise. They will tell you their superpower. You will repeat back to them what they just told you, and they will say, yes, yes I am. So be sure to be truthful about what you're thinking, and most importantly, take a risk here. Be vulnerable. So what I want you to do right now is I want you to get up out of your chairs. Let's take a minute to find a partner who you do not know. Someone who you do not know. Look behind you. Look in front of you. Someone you don't know. I'll give you 20 seconds to find that person. You can stand by the corner. You can go ahead and join me. You're welcome. Now let's go. Let's do this. wow, you just opened yourself up to a stranger. Right? Okay, so I just love the way you guys gave each other affirmation, and you were vulnerable with each other, and you were sharing, like I said, with a stranger. And like I said, vulnerability is really key to facing one's fears. In fact, I learned this the hard way. In one of my later chapters, I became L'Oreal Paris's national beauty spokesperson on one of the top live TV shopping channels in the world, with hundreds of thousands of dollars of sales per minute and millions in viewership. I got the job because I had been an award-winning news anchor, and I had a lot of experience talking to live audiences. So when my time came for the live presentation, everything was going great. I had made live presentations so many times before, all over the world, in the most challenging situations, environmental disasters, the most gruesome crime scenes, and the scariest neighborhoods. Here in contrast, I was surrounded by beauty products on a beautiful set. I'd just come from my dedicated green room, and I just experienced the most fabulous snacks and luxurious couches and a makeup artist. So, as I counted down to live air, I was ready. I had a whole presentation in my mind. And as an actress, I was really used to having all these people on the side while I talked on camera. But all of a sudden, no words came out of my mouth. And my heart started pounding insanely in my chest. I thought to myself, this isn't going well. But I've always recovered in the past. I knew I could right this ship. But then, in front of millions of people, I completely and utterly froze. Fear gripped me, and I was out of breath. I'd never experienced that feeling before, and now I was experiencing it in front of a live audience. I was embarrassed. I was deeply humiliated. And as you can guess, the item didn't sell. And then I did what most people would do in a situation like that. I thought to myself, what's the worst possible thing that could happen? And the worst possible thing is, I could get fired. Well, it happened. I got fired. So, the backstory is, I was told to present and talk like I was the neighbor next door, talking over the fence. Kind of casual banter. But at that time, I didn't feel comfortable doing that. I wanted to stick to being Little Miss Teleprompter, to hide behind the words, to hide behind the script. I didn't want to be vulnerable. I didn't want to look vulnerable. I clearly didn't want to fail. But when I did, I just let that failure wash over me. I absorbed it, and I processed it. I realized that I was afraid of judgment and rejection. So I named my fear, and all of a sudden it became clear to me what I had done wrong. I went back to my boss, and shockingly, he took me back, and they actually gave me a second chance. And guess what? After that, I turned my fear into fuel. I embraced it, and I actually ended up crushing it. I became the multi-million-dollar woman with L'Oreal renewing my contract and actually increasing my existing rate. And what I realized was, when I put a name to it and I embrace it, fear loses its grip. So now it's your turn. Yeah. We've all had moments in our life when we've experienced extreme disappointment and extreme failure. I now want you to think of your greatest fear or your greatest failure. You will not have to reveal this out loud in this room, but I want you to think about it. I want you to think of this exercise as a powerful stepping stone to anyone or to your increased vulnerability. That said, just think about it, take a moment, and challenge yourself. So if your reaction right now is, oh God, what is my greatest fear? Well, I don't know, if you're a high school student or a young professional in your 20s or 30s, you're probably thinking to yourself right now, will it happen? Can I do it? But you fear embarrassment and failure. And by the way, that fear is pretty normal. For those in your 40s and 50s, you might be at the peak of your career and your profession. You might be asking yourself, did I do enough? Am I enough? You might have imposter syndrome, or you're staying in your lane because you fear rejection or failure. And for those of you in your 60s and beyond, you may be having a career crisis. You're thinking to yourself, how will I remain relevant? How will I be remembered? I've experienced every one of these stages in life, and there is always room to change the paradigm. So hold these thoughts in your mind, and in a few moments, I'm going to ask you to stand up again and find your partner. If you can't find them, you can just join another group. What I want you to do is I want you to face your partner, and remember, you do not need to name your fear out loud. But what I want you to do is tell your partner in 2 to 3 words about how you are feeling about this fear you have, or this extreme failure that you experienced. So you would say to your partner, I'm feeling this, this, and this. Then your partner will repeat back to you what you just said and acknowledge you by saying, you are feeling this, this, and this. And I want you to add, and that's okay. Then I want you to switch roles with your partner and repeat the exact same process. So after you finish sharing with each other, make sure you give each other a high five, okay? So thank you for this atmosphere of confidentiality and mutual respect. So, ready?
Yep.
Let's do this. Let's open our hearts to the excitement of self-discovery. First, I want to acknowledge how vulnerable you guys have been. And you've taken really the first steps toward vulnerability and embracing that and turning your fear into fuel. And I want to thank you guys for allowing me to be vulnerable here with you today. So I hope this exercise leads you to a point when you can name your fear out loud, or at least you're thinking it, right? And eventually it loses its grip and its hold on you. So how do we turn what we just did right now into doing something completely different and using that power that we've just used? I always like to have 3 concrete steps. And here are my 3 concrete steps about turning fear into fuel. First, affirm yourself every day. Find partners in this process who can build you up and also create a safe space that you can open up to them and acknowledge yourself without fear of judgment. This will create courage. 2, I want you to be vulnerable and recognize and name your fear. Don't just shove it into bed like unwashed laundry. It's time to wash it and air it out. We just did that exercise just now. And third, I want you to find your champions and your advisors. Just like all the amazing people in this room, I want you to go to your network and be vulnerable. Make sure you ask a lot of questions because it builds trust and intimacy and creates an emotional connection so you can get the support you need. And you'll be so surprised how fast, if you use this process, your support network will grow. And by the way, you just opened yourself up to a stranger, so continue on. Just start with the people that are closest to you. With all these 3 concrete steps in mind, I want you to do something that's really important when you leave this room. I want you to leave here with a commitment that you will do something every day that scares you. And as your risk-taking grows, you in turn will turn fear into fuel and propel yourself like the fastest rocket ship or spaceship. In my favorite line from Star Trek, here is what I wish for all of you, and that is to boldly go where no one has gone before.